Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMS Cast. I'm joined by a special guest. His name is Zach Endershot. He's from Miruni.io, which automates website edit requests. He's an expert at AI. He's been around WordPress and agency life for a long time. But first, Zach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we're doing and cool stuff going on in the WordPress space.
Well, take us to town on Miruni. What is it and what problem does it solve?
Yeah, totally. So Miruni, as you said, automates edit requests for agencies coming from their customers using AI. So the idea is that agencies spend hundreds, if not thousands, of hours ultimately doing a lot of low complexity grunt work for their clients, often spelling updates, adding a new class to the website, or updating some content, or changing the opening hours of their store, whatever it is. And what we promise to do is automate away 80 to 90% of those requests by just automatically implementing them using AI directly inside of WordPress. It really came from, I have a long history in the agency space, and I have a lot of pain in my history of just, servicing hundreds of edit requests that were coming in, like distracting me from building my business and finding new work and solving high value problems for my customers. And when AI entered the stage, and we started to explore the possibilities, it became clear, like, we can probably take a lot of that, work I didn't want to do off of my plate with AI and figure that out, and then let me focus on the stuff I love to do, which is, building great experiences and really telling the brand story and, telling the story about the product you're selling, and not updating the spelling of a misspelled word 4 paragraphs deep on a page deep on the website, right? That took me 20 minutes to even find inside of WordPress, and just automate that away. So that's a little bit of the origin story. We're passionate about automation inside of WordPress right now, and eventually other CMS ecosystems as we go. But it's really about how do we make our lives better, happier, and faster, basically.
That's awesome. Walk us through from the client perspective and then the agency perspective, what happens when the client engages with Miruni on the site? Like, give us like an example flow.
Yeah, so we tried to make this. We know we have a lot of empathy for the fact that, often clients are not super technically savvy. They don't necessarily, in some cases, even know it's a WordPress site. They don't care. They are running their business, and they want the website to be what they want it to be. And so we focus a lot on easy usability for the end user. Really, the experience is quite simple. Once you install as a web admin the Miruni plugin into WordPress, it turns on a little widget on that shows up on the right side of the screen. Your customer or any stakeholder you want to leave feedback and submit edit requests, basically click a little activation link. They don't even have to have a WordPress login. They don't have to have anything other than sort of activate the widget. Once the widget is activated, they're given a little UI to basically highlight the section of the website. They navigate to the problem, highlight the little section they want to update, and describe in natural language, just English, what change they want made. And that's when the backend of Miruni gets to work. We go and figure out where that bit of content is, where that block of text is, where that image is, wherever it is. We prepare an automated edit to implement the request that the user came in. And then really the admin can log into the dashboard on the Miruni side inside of WordPress, the Miruni dashboard inside the plugin, and view what we're proposing and approve it. So basically one click is what the admin experience is view the request, what they were asking for, make sure that our implementation of that request is appropriate and, sort of makes sense based on all the parameters that we have, and click apply. In our data, and I think a lot of web admins would have a lot of empathy for this, but in our data, even simple spelling mistakes could take anywhere from, and we've measured this, 9 to 12 clicks on average to go and find a bit of content, especially larger complex websites tend towards the more 12 click angle. But 10 to 12 clicks, and even a spelling mistake might take you 10, 15 minutes, whereas with Miruni, it could take you a few seconds to review and approve. So very simple end user experience. Just open the widget, highlight what you want to change, and type a few words. The admin experience is also relatively simple. You log into the interface, view all the edit requests that came in from all your customers on that website, and then preview it and approve it all in one step. We want to get to kind of, just to talk a little bit longer term around where we're going to from a product perspective. We know that many agencies have a large portfolio of websites that they manage. And so today we do have a unified web dashboard with the product that allows you to look at all of the requests that have come in for all of the sites that you manage, where the Miruni WordPress plugin was installed. Today you have to log into the individual WordPress site to apply the change to the site, but at least today you get a unified view, and then we're going to continue to expand our tool to allow you to apply changes from a unified dashboard to your entire portfolio of sites. That will be coming later this year, early next year, as we expand and grow the product.
Man, this is awesome. The more I hear about it, the more excited I get. And I wish it existed 15 years ago, because I forget the software we use, but it would client would stick all these pins and sticky notes all over the place.
Yep.
And this totally automates a lot further.
I want to touch on that briefly, because there's a little bit of interesting history with Miruni in general. So we were a capture tool. So there are lots of tools like you just described, Chris, around marking up the website and pointing at the thing and leaving a pin and maybe a note or whatever. Miruni was, for a couple of years, a capture tool like that. But when we talked to a lot of our customers, we heard, yeah, capture's great. It saves me some time in understanding kind of what the customer wants out of the website, and it's great to have it overlaid on the site. Interesting tool. But we heard over and over again, even before the AI sort of tools became what they are today, we heard over and over again, yeah, but I still have to spend hours and hours of time going and implementing the request and collaborating back and forth around, what did you mean by this specifically sort of workflow. And so that was the other data point for us to say, if we could take it the next step, not only collect the request, but turn it into actual implementation, then I think that's a huge time saver and a big improvement in the customer experience for the end user, right? Your customer is going to have a lot faster turnaround time, and they're going to have a lot better, the more transparent experience, because they're, one, in the loop, and two, they don't have to do much. They just sort of have to describe what they want. And, in a lot of cases, it just gets done automatically with very little sort of human involvement. We do keep the human in the loop today for a very intentional reason. I think this is exposing a little bit more of my broader sort of AI strategy or my AI thinking around this. I think it's really important to have a human in the loop in the process to make sure that, things don't go off the rails, that, it may not know some specific strategy or some, unique thing about the user, the owner of the site that it needs to have in mind when it makes an edit request. And so we want to continue to have a human in the loop to make sure that, one, we have a feedback loop to make sure that we're doing better and better edit requests over time, but two, to make sure that we're not breaking things, we're not doing things that we may not be perfectly aware of, that there's confidence and trust being built with the end user and the web admin as we go through this process. And at some point in the future, maybe there's a fully automated implementation of low risk, high trust items, but for now we're very invested in the human in the loop part of our workflow.
That makes sense. And I have a psychology question for you. So for an agency owner, as our tools get better, which has been happening forever, if an agency person is like, well, if all I have to do is approve it and don't do it all these clicks and figure out if all this automation has happened, how can I keep charging for that? You know what I mean? Do you get my drift of where I'm going?
I do, yeah, and I hear this question a lot when I talk to agencies and people adjacent to that space. I think everybody is a little on edge, right? Am I being automated out of my job? How do I make money and monetize what I do uniquely do? And I think in the context of Miruni and us automating sort of this part of the process, the way that I think about it, and I think some of the feedback I've gotten and some of the early results we've seen back some of this up, where, you know, this work that we're trying to automate, we think is a really great fit for AI because one, every agency owner I talk to or people who manage customer relationships within agencies uh, don't want to do this work. This work does not uniquely add anything to the relationship that they have with their customer other than they have to do it, right? Like they have to update the website. They have to, improve it, refine it, evolve it. They have to do that, but they don't like to do it. It doesn't add a unique amount of value. And so what that frees them up to do is to go and find new work or find new ways to add a value to that relationship you have with that customer. Or, get really creative with your pricing models is another thing that I've heard, right? Like maybe you charge significantly less for your maintenance agreements because from a business perspective, it means that, you can have a higher volume of maintenance relationships, or it can be bundled into other value-added services in a cost-effective way that you may be able to offer, whether it's SEO optimization or, whatever other things you do as a business. And you can get way more creative than you could before because you just have really great cost parameters in terms of servicing sort of the day-to-day parts of the relationship. It also means perhaps maybe you want to keep the maintenance agreement the same amount it was before, but provide a better experience by using a tool like Miruni, where you can have much faster turnaround time. You can still stay competitive with your competitors who are not using Miruni yet, and do it better, faster, and more efficiently. And so the cost that you're paying for that maintenance agreement that you already had, they feel better about it because they feel that they're getting more value. You're doing more within the same amount of time that they were previously paying for. So long story short, I think it just gives you way more options because you're automating a ton of the stuff that you don't want to do, and gives you way more ability to find different ways of adding value, different ways of pricing and packaging, and creating adaptability within your business, which I think is great for everybody.
That's awesome. I feel like the maintenance plan agency provider, there's like two camps. There's some agencies that do a lot of that and they love maintenance plans, and others that are kind of on this, I just launched the website and I'm gone mentality. So let's talk to the launch the website and I'm gone mentality type person. If you were going to structure a maintenance plan, what might that look like? What are some ballpark, recurring costs to the client? If you use, maybe they're on the fence about it because they didn't want to do like content updates or something, but Miruni now makes that easy. What's an example that regular, like let's say WordPress agency type operation could add as an ongoing maintenance offer?
So why I think this is interesting for that persona, and just sort of restate it, that agency owner who just loves to build stuff, right? Like loves to build stuff. They're really good at that. They don't want to deal with the pain and the baggage, which it absolutely is in a lot of ways of maintenance and support and updates. I think what's really interesting is they can price a really aggressive maintenance agreement, hopefully with Miruni, make it really easy to service, right? Like very simple and low cost from a day-to-day perspective. But what that means for that owner is building a much longer term relationship that they don't have to push over to that maintenance focused agency. And those longer term relationships means that you may be able to price, $1,000 a month or $500 a month and still service a lot of requests and make it relatively easy to service those requests with Miruni, but be there and have a warm relationship with that client a year later, 2 years later, when they need to do a refresh or when they are launching a new business and they need somebody to help them build an experience, a web experience around it. And so, I think that's an important part of kind of building a long-term healthy relationship is you get to do it. Now you still may not want to do it because it is going to still be work, right? And there is still some accountability and ownership. But my view is that Miruni gives you the ability to automate a ton of it and make it a lot easier to service and keep that sort of like relationship warm, close to you, give you lots of opportunities to find new ways to add value as a business owner. As I said, whether it's SEO optimization or, any other sort of service offerings you might provide, and price it aggressively, and maybe add a little bit of additional recurring revenue, but not a ton of extra pain to go and service that relationship. So that's what I think is kind of a unique opportunity that this presents those personas that aren't super excited about creating it. But I think, the way that we look at it in terms of pricing and everything else is our pricing right now is usage based. So it's really about how many of these, what we call smart edits, you apply to your site. So not how many are generated or the requests that come in, but how many you apply to your site, which means that you've saved yourself time from having to go and do the edit manually. And so that's one way to think about how you price that maintenance agreement to your customers. Maybe it's by the number of requests that come in, or you could do a number of hours. Number of hours is a common thing that I hear both in the businesses I've run, but lots of agencies I talk to, just like a fixed number of hours. But I think as the world of AI evolves and customers are getting more and more comfortable as sort of what we call usage-based pricing, that might be something to mimic in agency owners' maintenance agreements that they push forward, because I think there's a lot of pushback these days. And I feel some of this in some previous agency work that I've done where, customers are pushing back against the concept of hour. What are you doing in that hour? What value am I getting in that hour? Why do I need 10 hours or 20 hours? And I don't want to waste 10 hours if I'm paying for 10 hours and you only do 10, like lots of things that are emerging there. But I think customers are getting more and more comfortable with, usage or outcome-based pricing. You might see talked about a lot. And I think it might be interesting for agency owners to start to evolve a little bit more towards this sort of outcome-based pricing. I can help you, with 10 updates a month or 15 updates a month, regardless of how many hours that costs me to go and do it. With a tool like Miruni or other AI automations, you might be able to do, you might be able to make that work. Customers feel good about, I'm just paying for results. You feel good as a business owner because generally speaking, you can generate those outcomes with relatively low human time because of all the automation tools you have available, and it's sort of a win-win. So I think you're going to see a little bit of that emerge in the agency space around like how do I promise and deliver outcomes, but do it in a scalable, sustainable way for me as a human or a group of humans, helping these customers solve problems.
That makes sense because like AI, when you use it, has like, its usage limits. And
Yep.
so if you start thinking like that as an agency owner, like, well, my maintenance plan has 30 update requests per month,
Yep.
Which is like 7 a week or 1 a day. And most people aren't working on their website every single day, but let's say once a week they put 5, 6, 7 things through. It just makes sense. But if they're going to be a heavy user, they might need to be on a bigger maintenance plan or whatever.
Yeah, and you can play with that. You can have different tiers. This is starting to get like really invested in that as a revenue channel, but it can be really valuable if you have the tools to back you up and can price it in a way that allows you to make money but provide really great experiences and keep the relationship long term. I think there's some win-wins here.
AI is definitely a hot topic in WordPress right now. So for the folks familiar with WordPress and AI tools, like, can you tell us like at a high level how Miruni works? Like how are you able to use AI in WordPress as to extend the human?
Yeah. So this is the fun part of building an AI product, right? There's no unified like best practice way to go and build and integrate AI into a product. So this is always an interesting, everybody does it a little differently. I'm close to the core AI team in the WordPress group, and so I see a lot of the day-to-day kind of fighting is the wrong word, but sort of like the trying to figure things out, right? Like what is the right way and the right sort of architecture to do this, and like what tools should we lean on and not lean on? So there's a lot of open-ended questions. Generally speaking, the way that we work is we have I don't want to be too buzzwordy, but if you've heard agentic systems, right? Like we built sort of an agentic system, a group or a network of AI agents that work together to achieve a bigger result. And so generally speaking, we have a number of different AI agents that do different parts of the process. Broadly speaking, we have an agent that will distill the end user request into a series of steps, because it knows the WordPress system, it knows how data is structured, it knows lots of things about your unique data, because we have a plugin that connects and can read your data in a way that exposes it to an LLM, and by extension, an agent. So we have an agent that kind of breaks out all the steps that need to happen. And then we have an agent that, and then we go and execute those steps. That's more deterministic kind of code that we go and do, which is basically like, actually physically extracting the content that's going to be required to potentially make the edit, generate a diff, sort of something that can be directly applied to the content to make it reflect the results that we want to achieve, that sort of thing. And then we have an agent that will validate it and verify it, make sure that it didn't break the system, that it sort of meets the understanding of the request we got from the user. And then we have an agent that will generate the preview pane and all the other things to make it really easy for the web admin to review it and approve it. So we have kind of a few steps that we go through internally for every request that comes in. And we've sort of homegrown a little bit of our orchestration system around that. There's a lot of emerging tools and technologies that sort of make some of that easier and whatever. Because we're kind of on the front edge of some of this stuff, we've had to cook some of it up ourselves. But the really cool thing that's happening right now in the WordPress space for folks who are following along is the core AI team, James LePage, if you want to look him up or connect to him, he's been leading a lot of really interesting improvements in this space. There's feature API within WordPress that start to expose some of the core data elements to LLMs within WordPress. We've had to hack through a lot of that, but they're starting to standardize how you do that in a consistent way. And they're starting to evolve some of the, again, not too buzzwordy, but sort of MCP, Model Context Protocol, sort of exposes data in a standardized way for LLM. So they're starting to make investments in some of those tooling. So I think over the next year, the core AI team is going to make huge amounts of progress to make, standardize some of the things that we're doing and make our job a little bit easier, so that you'll see more and more kind of benefits inside of WordPress that AI is going to bring. You're already seeing some like automation inside of the WordPress admin, with things like Command UI and other things like that, starting to adopt some AI tools. And then there's some internal AI automations that are happening around like in page builders for like page creation that you're starting to see. Where we're focused, and I think this is some of the evolving space right now, a lot of people focus on content creation and creating new content and automating the creation of designs and new pages and page layouts and whatever. We're focused kind of on the tail end. How do you evolve and enhance and grow the website over time? Interesting little stat, and I'll pause. In all of our research, we found that a large number of sites and agencies spend, and by extension customers, spend more money updating and evolving the site over the average sort of 3 years that a site exists than they do on the initial build of the site. So what we're focused on is like, you shouldn't have to spend as much money as you spent building the site over the 3 years of its existence, evolving, updating, enhancing, growing, changing. We can automate huge chunks of that out, so you can focus more on just running your business. So that's kind of our focus, is like the long tail of the life of the website, not so much the initial creation of the site. There's a lot of great AI tools evolving in that space. We're trying to be the flagship of the long tail of site maintenance and management.
Wow, I love good like product philosophy when I see it, and like getting that data. And I remember that from my agency days, particularly with my best clients. Most 90% of the money is made after the launch.
Yeah.
And it's an underserved market as well in a lot of ways.
Really
so
is.
Focusing your genius on like that part of the user experience as an agency or client of an agency makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And you kind of mentioned it, but I wanted to ask a broad question. Let's say somebody's newer to building WordPress websites for clients as a business. This is such a big question, so let me know if it's too big. But how could they use AI? I mean, definitely get Miruni io for the ongoing relationship and maintenance and just ongoing work. But like, what are some of the coolest ways agencies are using AI today to still be the human in the loop, but augment what they're capable of?
Yeah, this is a big question, but I think there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about here. So, um, there, I think we'll see more and more standardization on some of the tools that agency use. Today, it's like Wild West. There are 100 tools that I've heard over the last 3 to 6 months that I've really been talking to agencies about AI. But the things that emerge fall into a couple categories for me. So one is like strategy, tools to help you define marketing strategy, sales strategy, sort of content strategy on the site. A lot of the usual suspects. So, a lot of ChatGPT and Claude to kind of create outlines and content outlines and stuff, and take, maybe brand elements that exist as inputs, and, start to create, content and marketing strategies around that. But beyond that, I think we're seeing tools like Notebook LM coming into play, where agencies are using sort of a centralized Notebook LM from Google. There's lots of other alternatives to aggregate like value prop documents, design systems that they exist, brand documents, and sort of like creating a unified view of what the business is and how it does it, and then use that as sort of a way to go and, create strategies and other things like that, and keep that running over the lifetime of the relationship the agency has with that customer, so that they kind of have this running sort of intelligent history of what the customer is trying to do and how they're trying to do it. And then you can evolve that over time as you go with more assets and stuff like that. And then, there's content creation is the other big category that I think is huge and only changing every day. Certainly, like brand creation tools are big. And in fact, Claude and ChatGPT and other things can generate a lot of assets. But things like Canva are evolving their AI generation capability. So I'm seeing a lot of tools, or a lot of agencies using Canva to generate logos and design elements and animations and graphs and charts and stuff like that. So seeing a lot of that these days. I'm also seeing more and more rich media content creation. I was playing with VO3, if anybody has played with AI generated video, and that is certainly starting to hit production level quality in terms of like hero videos, right, that you play sort of behind the screen as a design element or to demonstrate product highlights. I was actually generating, just really for my own testing to see what was possible, but I was generating a product demo with real live actors using that product demo. And there's some advanced features in the VO3 tool, but like I'm seeing more and more agencies starting to automate some of their sort of rich media creation, whereas they would have maybe pushed to a motion designer or something at some point. So, a lot of these tools are flattening. And then, I think the other thing I'm starting to see a little bit more of is certainly, page creators. I think we're seeing that announced every day, and like Elementor, and I think every page builder has some AI strategy, right? I think there's slower adoption to that, because I think it's hitting on the question that you had at the beginning, which is, what am I adding uniquely valuable as a web admin, as an agency owner, right? Like, and I think there's a little bit of pushback, because like, one, is that going to do a good enough job? Two, like, what value am I adding? And three, like, it still has a bunch of rough edges in terms of creating a really great experience. And so I think there's a little bit of hesitation and resistance there. The tools will get better. I am a firm believer that even when the tools are amazing and great, and feel really polished and just sort of like evolve really well, I do truly believe that the best agencies and the best web admins and freelancers are going to be the ones that know how to like pull all these strategies together to deliver a great experience. Are really fast and efficient because they're using AI tools to get a lot of the grunt work done, but really know what it takes to build a great experience, to build, to tell the right brand story, to, get the right content in the right place, to, position the way, and the sort of the information architecture the right way. Like, I still think there's going to be magic in the human in the loop as a part of this. I just think those humans are going to be better, faster, stronger, and more effective than they were before with a lot of these AI tools.
I give credit for the quote if I knew where it came from, but there's a quote, I think it went popular on Twitter, that says something like, "You're not going to be replaced by AI, you're going to be replaced by someone who uses AI."
Yeah,
So, in
I
terms
wish I
of
would have said that quote. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's I think that's the way it's going to play out.
in terms of someone who uses AI, you mentioned the overwhelm of like Wild West tools changing all the time. I mean, I just got on like this writing tool that I found like over the weekend. I'm in love with it, but
Yep.
like I still have to run my job and do all this other stuff and work in old school methods.
Yep.
What advice do you have for an agency owner or any kind of creator really who wants to play with AI, but like kind of gets overwhelmed because there's so many options and all these things. And then another thing that happens sometimes is someone will just stick on like one tool, like, oh, well, I just use ChatGPT, or I'm all in on Canva and I'm just in Canva land. And that's Canva does all the images for me, but they're not really open to other things. Like,
Yeah.
how do you run your day job and your startup and also uh, do all this experimentation and without getting overwhelmed?
It's yeah, that's a great question. It's tough, right? Because we have stuff to do, we have work to do, and you can't always fit a huge amount of experimentation in the middle of client meetings and whatever. So it's a tough position. What I would say though, and I think we all have to have this sort of curiosity, right? Like we have to have this curiosity. We have to experiment. We have to try different things. I think over time, my prediction is, a year and a half, things are going to start to consolidate a little bit. There's going to be, the one size that fits most for image generation, the one size that fits most for, page building and creation and whatever. And so there's going to be a simpler sort of menu of items in front of you. But today, I think it's really important for agency owners just to like put a meeting on your calendar. I actually did this originally because it was really hard for me to, pull away from kind of the day to day. But I put a meeting on the calendar and just said like, hey, like this, I'm going to spend a little bit of time in just trying a new tool and play with it and experiment and just get different sort of experiences out of it, because the tools are very diverse today. Like you may get comfortable with Canva today and just kind of fall into that as sort of your tool for creating some design assets and stuff. But I was trying to think of another sort of competitive product that has some AI tools, but like any other product is going to do it very differently. Sometimes it'll do certain things really, really well and other things worse than your sort of go-to tool. And, there's just not a lot of consistency. I think some of the chat agents are starting to evolve that way, the more sort of really general purpose tools. It's, Claude is good at, creative content and stuff like that. ChatGPT is better at sort of just like, fact-based sort of like reasoning and stuff like that around topics and content, sort of like a good general purpose models. But they're kind of like really similar these days, especially as the models evolve. And I think you'll see more of the specialized tools get that way too. But for now, you just got to kind of like experiment, be intentional about it, try different things, and figure out what's good and not good in different pieces and parts. I think over time, though, that will become a little bit easier because there will be a more simplified list of tools. So I think it's a short-term thing. Not that you shouldn't always be experimenting and trying, in my opinion, but I think for now, you just got to make time for it. You just got to try and experiment, follow the Reddit threads or, subreddits or forums or Facebook groups or whatever it is that you frequent on a regular basis, and just follow a few of the groups experimenting with different tools and just expose yourself to it is the other thing. Exposure therapy works in my case too, because I'm always on, in between things or before I go to bed, I'm on, Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. And I just sort of follow a few of the things and they come across my feed. I'm like, oh, that's a cool tool. I'm going to save that and look at it tomorrow. So kind of a combination of the two, I think.
I love that. It makes me think about, I think it's technically called the, like the evolution of technology. It's the diffusion of innovation curve, bell curve.
Yeah.
And there's the concept of the innovator, the early adopter, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards at the end that come really late. And oftentimes we think that we're late when we're early.
Yeah.
or we're just waiting for the majority. So like you mentioned, in technology, there's often like a winner take all thing that goes on. Like web browsing used to be crazy. Now it's mostly just Google. There
Yep.
used to be a lot of video startups, but it's mostly YouTube and Vimeo or whatever. It consolidates.
Yep.
But being an early adopter of AI can be not only fun, but you set yourself up to catch that wave before the early majority gets here, which can really come in handy.
And you
And
build skills.
I just want to say, like when I um, launched Lifter LMS as an example in 2013, I thought I was late to the WordPress party. I'm like, oh my God, it's all been done. Like, but I felt like a late majority, but I was actually an early adopter
Yep.
from getting into the game in 2007 or 2008. But I thought I was late.
Yep.
And as an entrepreneur, you tend to have like this drive to experiment. You know, a lot of entrepreneurial folks tend to have more on the ADHD kind of thing. Like, so it
Yep.
can actually be fun, and you can feed stuff if you're prone to shiny object syndrome. And by the way, it's now part of your job. So good job putting the meeting on your calendar, right?
Yeah, leverage that tendency for good, rather than evil. Yeah, I agree. And like, entrepreneurs like yourself are the folks, like that feeling is kind of a core entrepreneurial feeling, right? Like the feeling you're left behind or behind the ball or too late to the game often is just sort of like this mental internal push towards like going and pushing yourself faster and stronger and more aggressively into the thing because you feel like you have to catch up, when the reality is you probably don't actually have to catch up, but it's the thing that makes you a good entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, and get you in the game early. So
Yeah.
like if you're leveraging AI for building better maintenance plans that you enjoy delivering more for your agency clients, like get in the game early before everybody's doing it. And
And
everybody has Miruni. Like I could see
yeah.
this really like blowing up, like be an early adopter.
Yeah, and I won't, I think any of these tools, but Miruni included, right? Like can be a deeply competitive advantage right now, right? Like
Yeah.
the sooner you start to figure out how these tools make you better and faster and deliver better services, more cost effectively or whatever it is, um, may even feel in some ways like, oh, everybody and their brother and sister are using AI to make their business super efficient anyway. So me doing it is only gonna, help me catch up a little bit. But often the reality is like using tools like this, like are really going to make you an early adopter and really give you a competitive advantage that you don't have today. It may not feel like it because you see it all over LinkedIn or whatever. The reality is very different behind the scenes. And so you should be picking these up, using them. Not all of them are going to be great. Some of them are really going to transform your business. So it's about experimentation.
Yeah. That's amazing. What's next for Miruni? Like you mentioned, I mean, your agents are evolving and people have to go into the WordPress site, but maybe one day they'll be able to kind of do it from Miruni or a centralized location. Let's say you have like 100 clients and you like live in Miruni. I can see that. But what else is on your vision for the future of this space for ongoing work for agency clients via
So
Miruni?
we see ourselves as, we want to be automating huge parts of how an agency operates. Today, it's content updates and edit requests that you get from your customers and clients in WordPress is kind of our today. I think when we look a little bit further into the future for where we want this product to be and what we want to be doing, we start to widen up into a much wider range of things that you do on a day-to-day basis in your agency that are great opportunities to just automate out of your life. Some examples, and there's sort of like different angles we can take, but certainly if you think about SEO optimization, today HubSpot will generate you a report looking at the external version of your site of the 48 different things that you should be doing to increase your SEO optimization. I'm sure there's going to be generative engine optimization as well. I think somebody is starting to coin the term around how you make yourself visible and exposed to LLMs to highlight your business inside of ChatGPT responses. But there's going to be reports that outline all the things you should be doing. The cool thing is the engine that we build in Miruni will allow us to automate a large number of those automatically for you. Import that report, we can automatically update all of the titles to meet a certain recommendation, or the meta tags on each page can be updated automatically based on that input. These are just edit requests of a different type that can come in, and we could automate away. So a lot of that day-to-day work you may be doing, we're focused on ultimately automating. On the other side, we want to be, we know agencies, or many agencies, who are not all on WordPress or not all on a specific set of page builders, and so we want to automate your entire portfolio. So we want to automate the requests that come in for your Drupal sites or your AEM sites in the enterprise, or Joomla, or whatever it is that you're using. So we want to be sort of platform agnostic in terms of what we're automating across your portfolio. And yes, we want to be sort of the dashboard for how you manage your portfolio of sites, and be able to push those changes into those sites across your portfolio and make that simple and easy. And at some point, we also want to be the tool set that you use in other tools to automate edits within sites, automate changes, new content, plug into other platforms and tools that may have insight that they want to implement inside of the web. And so we really just want to automate all of the manual, boring, kind of low complexity or low value add work that happens deep under the covers of web CMS platforms, and automate a huge chunk of that away. We want you to just describe and think what you want to do and turn that into action, basically. And there's lots of steps to go as we sort of evolve within the WordPress ecosystem and outside of it, but we think there's a lot we can do to just make everybody's life a lot easier managing complex, high scale, web properties across the web.
Awesome. Let's walk through, somebody's interested in Miruni. They go to your website, just kind of walk us through the initial setup. Like, what do they need to do to get started using Miruni?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's going to be similar to any other WordPress plugin in a lot of ways, but it is sort of a SaaS product because of all the processing that goes in the back end. So you go to Miruni.io, create an account. It should be pretty simple, username and password. You'll be directly linked to the WordPress repository to go and install the plugin into your site. So you can either search for it directly inside of WordPress, or we can direct link you into the plugin page in the WordPress repository and install it. Once you install the WordPress plugin, you'll be prompted to connect your account, your Miruni account, to the plugin. So you'll be prompted to log in or create an account there. That's another flow. You can just install the plugin on your site and create an account through the plugin. Either way, you get the account linked up. By default, once you activate the plugin, you'll get the snippet will turn on to allow end users to leave feedback. Nobody will see it until they activate it. So I didn't mention that before, but you do have to activate the snippet in order to see it. It doesn't just show for everybody right out of the gate. So you'll have an invite link in the top of your Miruni dashboard inside of WordPress. Send that to your client. They click it, they'll start to see the widget and can leave feedback requests, and they'll feed right into your dashboard. We intentionally kept it very simple from a UI perspective. You really just get a dashboard with all the requests as they come in. By default, sort of reverse chronological order. So you'll see them come in. You can click into them, click the Smart Edit interface, review it, get a side-by-side preview of before and after, and an apply button, and that's it. You start applying these edits to your site, and they go live immediately, and clients just keep using the widget to highlight parts of the website they want to change and describing them, and just keep going like that. So it's pretty simple end to end.
That's awesome. So go check out Miruni. That's Zach Hendershot. It's Miruni.io. That's Miruni.io. Zach, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing with AI and your vision for this product and how you're helping agencies. This is really cool. We're going to have to do a follow-up like in a year and see where we're at. As you said, it's the Wild West, and see what's going on a year from now. But thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I'll be happy to come back in a year and regale you with what went right and what went wrong. So I look forward to it.